when purchasing a used car, there is a lot to consider. Here with something like an EV, there's little to no maintenance that goes on underneath, but cosmetically, there's a lot of things that you guys should definitely consider and take into account before pulling the trigger on a new used vehicle. So this is my friend Max's Polestar 2. He just picked up from Polestar in Portland, and he just brought it back here, and we're gonna do a full overview with Max on camera today, talking about his new Polestar 2 and things to look out for when buying a used vehicle. Welcome back to another out of spec detailing video. Let's jump into it. Well, here is my friend Max's Polestar 2, looking really, really nice after we just washed it up. And Max runs the Out of Spec Guide channel. I will leave a link in the description below so you can go meet Max and get to know him a little bit more and his car. So Max, you just picked this car up, you bought it used. Tell me a little bit about the car, and then we're gonna talk about some things that I think you need to consider as far as aesthetics on the vehicle from a detailer's perspective.
Sure. So I picked this guy up as a basically certified pre-owned vehicle from Polestar's official inventory. And to be honest, getting a vehicle like this was always going to be a stretch for me. So that's why I was looking at used. New really wasn't on the table with Polestar 2s where they sit currently, not being eligible for the tax credit. But this video applies to all kinds of used cars, especially used EVs. And I did like the direct-to-consumer experience where I just went to Polestar Portland and bought this used. However, it was a lot cheaper than it would have been buying one new, even more depreciated than some other Polestars, and that's because this lived its life as a rental car. And that is a big red flag if you are, well, someone like Coleton or someone who's seen a lot of cars with various issues, scratches, and whatnot. However, we've been pleasantly surprised, I think, overall, that a lot of the body paint on this car is decent, but we'll show you some of the quirks, features,
Hey Doug, how are you?
We'll show you some of the quirks and niggles. You can tell I watch a lot of YouTube about this car. Some of the things that maybe you wouldn't get on a new car that you should look out for if you're buying a used car, even if it's quote unquote certified, because while that applies to mechanical components, you have no idea how brands like Polestar, Tesla, Rivian, or whoever else might treat their cars and what they might consider acceptable to ship to a customer.
Definitely. I think one of the most interesting things is that Polestar CPO'd a rental vehicle. That, when you told me that, it really kind of shocked me, to be honest, because when I think of rental car, I think of seeing every single wheel curb rashed. We're going to talk a lot about that. The car going through brush car washes, really getting beat up. Because, I mean, you and me both, I think when we, pick up a rental car, we don't really care. It's a rental car, right? So that's the worry of buying something like this. Now, I'm going to talk a lot about my experience with people buying used vehicles in this particular video when we're talking about accident damage, paint damage, things like that. So Max, you've definitely found a few things on this particular car. Number one being this A-pillar. So you, of course, road tripped this back from Portland, and tell me a little bit about what happened there.
Yeah, so the road trip went well, about, all 1,400, I think, plus miles of it. Then about 20 miles from home on our very windy Highway 93 here in Colorado, this flew off. And at the time, driving the car, I had no idea really what happened. I thought, did someone leave some debris on the highway? I could tell something fell off. I couldn't believe it was part of my own car until I got home and realized that this was missing. And so that was an obvious build quality and fitment issue. And when I talked to Coleton about it, right away, he suspected the windshield on this car has been replaced, which can happen on a used car rental or not. And it seems like whoever replaced the windshield, well, they did a good job. Of course, it's an OE, windshield. However, they left this panel very loose. So now it's all very tight and nice. However, we can see if we look on the other side that I might have the same issue happen here. Next time I come into Polestar, I think I'm gonna have to ask them to tighten this up because same issue here. I don't know if there's a loose tab or what, but it's a little bit not super well put down there.
Yeah, I see that a lot on used vehicles is new windshields going in. Now, it should be said, this looks like it does have the Polestar approved piece of glass there. So I see a lot of these cars come in, they get windshields replaced, and when they do, you get a lot of issues as far as like air gaps up here, and they can whistle. Think of Kyle's smart car, how that thing over time
The tea kettle, we like to call it.
The tea kettle. So a lot of the ways you can look at that is take the wipers here, and if you pop the covers off there, if you see that the bolts are a little stripped in that area, you may see that you've had a windshield replaced. Now, is that the end of the world? No, but look for surrounding areas like the hood and roof areas here, and of course A-pillars, because a lot of times they take these off, they break clips. I recently was just looking at a BMW i3 for myself, and those A-pillars were basically held on with a piece of bubble gum, it looked like. So really start considering some of those things. Now, Max, one of the big things that I was concerned about with your rental car here was wheels. And show me what's going on over here, because this is something that a lot of people may initially look at this wheel and go, wow, you know, it really looks pretty nice.
Yeah.
And I was like, there has to be curb rash. And as you can see down here, see that area that's been repainted there? It's really kind of strange in that area where the rest of the wheel looks pretty nice. So somebody has gone in there, I would assume Polestar or another dealership. I'm not exactly sure.
Perhaps the rental fleet company, Enterprise, whom I believe this car was in a service for a year.
Definitely. I would assume they went in there and fixed that. And got to be honest, that really doesn't look the best. Now, it is nice to know it is only on the passenger side of this vehicle. I believe, does this back one have some too?
This one has not been repainted that badly, or at least that's so poor. I mean, right, we can see that in any lighting. Daylight, under the shop, you can't miss that once you know it's there. However, here, the inside of the wheel looks fine. You can see on the diameter of it, though, definitely has been some curb rash, and we have some nasty bite. I believe here you can see good chunk of that, my nice performance pack, you know, 20-inch forged wheel, well, just gone.
Yep, and my concern, I said to you, anytime a car makes contact with a curb, you have some sort of alignment issues, or you can have alignment issues. And I said, you know, Max, I was looking at your front tire when you originally pulled up, and I went, there's some cupping going on here. Now, this is not things that is just to detailing. This is a little bit more mechanical stuff, but stuff that I notice. I'm around cars all the time. You can see I just got vehicles everywhere. You know, I work on a lot of new cars and definitely a lot of used cars, and I would definitely point this out to my customers. So the cupping on there means that you had a little bit of toe in going on this particular vehicle. And Polestar, when you took it in to get your A-pillar fixed, you said, hey, do you mind checking out the alignment? And it was definitely off from what it sounded like.
Yep, I forget what they said, like 0.15 degrees, or if you're in the tire world, basically a margin that was definitely safe to drive, but also not completely okay. So by getting that corrected, I think the tire is going to wear much better. The cupping is still there, you know, that's just been worn in, but hopefully from now on, I can feel more confident that it's as it was.
Yep. So like I was saying, aesthetically, does curb rash stink? Yes, but there can always be some little gremlins underneath, if you will, that can cause you to wear through tires very, very quickly, especially on something like these Continentals that are very soft summer tires. So that's something to really take into consideration, have your car aligned. And as far as like a detailing perspective on these vehicles, I was like, oh my gosh, Max, this paint is gonna look terrible. And I'm actually surprised it's really not that bad, which is honestly quite shocking. We're gonna take some paint readings on this because I work with a lot of customers who I say are professional car buyers. They like to buy and sell new and used vehicles constantly. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that because there's some weird stuff that goes on. So one of the most important things as far as looking at paint is a paint meter, something like this. This one's from Amazon. It's been hugely controversial on this channel. Totally fine. I'm not spending $1,200 to get a paint meter. This thing reads very, very accurately. I've tested this thing. I've recalibrated it. It's completely fine. So here's what I've seen in the past from a detailer's perspective. You see and hear a lot about Carfaxes, right? Okay, my car's got a clean Carfax. I'll tell you what's been happening, and this is really unfortunate. I made a comment about this in a previous video, but I've seen this multiple times throughout. Now, a lot of the times what happens is, especially now with the industry and market how it is, with cars being inflated value, is something like the car gets hit in the front, And what you'll see is a lot of the times people don't go through insurance, so it doesn't show up on the Carfax when they go to trade it in. And all of a sudden you've got repainted body panels that you don't even know are repainted. I've had multiple instances with this with my particular clients, and they bring their new car to me and they're like, I'm so excited about this thing. We're gonna do a full paint correction polish on it. And I start taking paint readings and I go, oh boy, we've got a serious issue. One of those cars was a 5 Series BMW. They paid a really good amount of money for it, showed clean Carfax, no accidents. The entire side of the car had been completely repainted. Quarter panels, doors, front fender, hood. And I called the customer and went, you've got a serious issue here. And he's like, well, what do you mean it's got a clean Carfax? Well, this is what you see happening as car values are so all over the place. People don't want to go through insurance. So it's really important to have something like a paint meter. I've also had instances with a vehicle like an Audi RS7 that I just had here through the shop recently, that the car was sold at auction. Guys, anytime a car sold at auction, be careful. Something's happened to that car. And this particular car, again, clean Carfax, had been completely hail damaged to the point of they had to cut out the roof of it and repaint it, replace the hood, and it had all of the paintless dent repair marks all over the paint without the owner's knowledge at all. This was sold to him at a dealership, and that particular car thought it was a clean Carfax, and my opinion, that car needs to go back and he needs to get his money back, but it's nor here nor there. So those are some things I need you guys to look at. This thing is the greatest insurance policy, if you will. These are $60 on Amazon. You do not need to spend $1,200 on a paint meter. It just doesn't need to happen. This is a measuring tool. I gave the analogy, if you run to Harbor Freight, get a $5 tape measure, you're gonna be within a couple like really tiny hairs of a Snap-on one that costs $120 or whatever. Same thing going on here. So Max, let's just walk around your car here and let me show what I would like to look at as far as paint meter. So I'm gonna take this in mils, 5.79 mils, fantastic amount of paint. What I want you guys to look for is between 4 to 6-ish mils. 6 being a really good amount of paint, 4 being a good amount of paint. When you see anything below 3.5, start getting concerned. The biggest thing, if your car's been repainted, if you start seeing readings into 15, 16, 17 mils, you've seriously got a problem. And believe me, that 5 Series I was talking about, that's exactly how it was. 5 mils back here, the driver's side door, 20 mils, which means it's got a ton of Bondo in it. It's been just completely repainted without anybody's knowledge. Again, clean Carfax. So I'm also looking for consistency. Man, this looks fantastic. 5.3 mils. So far, I can tell you this panel looks as it should. From Polestar, let's go here on the door, 5 mils, 5 mils. Let's get another reading here. Man,
that's boring almost.
I know, really boring, really consistent. That's what you're looking for. Now, these will jump around a little bit. As you guys may have seen on this channel, or if you're a first-time viewer, paint is not super consistent for all manufacturers. Great example here of how consistent this Polestar paint is. You jump into something like a Tesla, you're gonna have areas of, some areas maybe 7 mils on this Model Y, and the hood may be, low 4s. That's not a huge deal. Again, I'm looking for really low paint, which means it may have been sanded, went through a body shop, something may have happened there. You want a little bit of paint on there because you want to be able to take the scratches out, make your car look nice. Again, you're on the detailing channel, so keep that into consideration. And the biggest thing, if you're seeing paint readings that are 10 mils when you have them in 5, like 4 or 5 mils in other areas, please, please, please be concerned about that.
And Coleton, if I can ask, obviously a car being repainted cosmetically for you as a detailer, that's an issue, very inconsistent. That's also, I feel like, just general used car advice, a sign that we might have structural damage. There might be other things going on that can affect the function of the car.
100%.
It's not just a, oh no, my car won't look perfect. It's like a, oh no, your car might have some history you really should have known about.
Exactly. So take that into comparison with the wheel like we were talking about. Okay, curb rash sucks, right? You have cosmetic damage on there. But what's underneath there? Like you could have had a broken suspension arm. Think about that. You picked this car up. It was a CPO'd car, which to me means the car should have really been gone through, probably alignment checked. And I'm not bashing Polestar for this, but I'm saying just be a little diligent with this. You could have driven all the way to Colorado. You could have had a arm that was completely bent. It could have snapped. That could have caused an accident. Like these are things you guys need to take into consideration. And it's very unfortunate, but the way this industry is right now, car market being so inflated, huge inflation rates, people are just stressed out. These cars are expensive and they're just trying to get rid of them. So if you take it to a quick body shop, they're like, man, I got smashed on this fender. Don't worry about the suspension, just repaint this. Start keeping that in the back of your head. So having a paint meter, great to go look around, get that insurance policy, if you will. Now, cosmetically, if you don't care about a repainted car, totally fine. They're not going to be factory finish. Sometimes they may be better than factory finish. So a couple of things to look out there for. My personal opinion, always buy a car that hasn't been repainted, hasn't been in an accident, because there are gremlins that go, for years and years to come. Now, as far as anything else, Max, that you can think about as far as used cars, what would you consider to look at? I mean, definitely an EV is a little bit different than a mechanical vehicle, but those cosmetic issues could come up down the road.
For sure. And I mean, we'll leave it to the detailing channel here. We won't get too EV nerdy about the battery. However, this is a, fairly new car, fairly high capacity battery. I seem to be getting all the range I expect from that. I'm not too worried about degradation, but as it pertains to detailing, I think the interior is always an interesting note to bring up. This one seems to be in okay condition. However, it is leather. And as we've noted on this channel before, I know you've talked about this, some materials wear easier than others and interiors can definitely get beat up.
Yep, definitely. So looking at interiors for rips and tears and starting to crack, my personal opinion, a rental vehicle like this is just to me a red flag. And, Max got a great price on this. Me personally, huge red flag and not really something I'd want to deal with. I'm a little bit more OCD than most of you, but definitely take a look at the bolsters and let's come over here, especially on the driver's seat. A lot of rental cars are used by a single person, maybe a couple, and we're locked here, Max.
Oh no.
Get your proximity
will it recognize my phone key? Now it will.
So biggest thing here to look for, check out the bolster. This one is looking okay. My personal opinion, Max, jump in there a little bit. This seat definitely needs some love. Now, as you can see, these cars don't really get cleaned. Leather really needs to get cleaned often, actually a lot more than vinyl that you find in something like the Tesla Model Y, Rivians. So take that into consideration. If there's cracking starting, I would really maybe consider passing on that car if you see some curved wheels, some weird things like that. This one, fortunately, doesn't have any cracking. The seat looks okay. Honestly, just really needs a deep clean. So maybe take that into consideration when you buy a used car, have a detailer look at it, because a lot of the times they just quickly go through these cars at dealerships and can actually cause a lot of damage as far as scratching, putting wrong products like Armor All or something on a dash. So not something you want to deal with, but it is what it is when you're buying a used car. And I do understand there is a huge value proposition for doing so, because what was the depreciation on this, Max, if you don't mind saying the original sticker price and what you paid for it?
Yeah, original sticker price on this launch edition Polestar 2 with all the packages, this was blinged out, $72,000-ish MSRP, I believe. Very expensive.
Yeah.
And I got it for $46,500, so $46,500 as a CPO. So I get the full warranty, actually extended warranty, because their CPO kicks in. However, as we've talked about, I have to deal with all the gremlins and issues that we come to expect in used cars.
Definitely. And this car only has 7,500 miles on it, I think, when you bought it.
I put a lot, but it came with 7,800 miles.
Okay. So yeah, so huge depreciation. So as you can see, some things to look out for. Again, Max, when you picked up this car, it would have been super nice to have one of these to definitely take that alignment thing into consideration. You flew out to Portland, so that may have been something. You can take this in your backpack. You buy a car, across the country, take this with you, have the wheels looked at, make sure you test drive the vehicles and see how they feel. But you can start looking at these little cosmetic issues, and a lot of people don't really take that into consideration. They think, oh, there's going to be some scratches here and there, that's fine. But this is the greatest thing you can have for buying a used vehicle, and I think it is so important. I'm going to leave a link in the description below to this particular one that I use here at the shop, and I think that's about it.
Yeah. So it sounds like our advice, more or less, is the paint meter, very versatile tool,
Yes.
something you can easily bring with you. Even if you're flying into a city with a briefcase, I mean, that's going to fit in, no issue. And then just use your eyes. Get really close to these wheels and tires. I mean, you know, when I picked this up, I was tired, I was exhausted, you know, jet lagged, all that. But I mean, and I got lucky. This isn't the worst used car in the world.
No.
However, people definitely, it seems like, should be on their A game when it comes to looking at every part of the car, even if, like in this case, it's a CPO, because for each brand, that means a very different thing.
Absolutely. And one more point I want to touch on was Dave's car. Out of Spec Dave. You guys may have known him. He's had many cars. It's hard to follow. But he had a Model S that he bought from, was it Carvana or CarMax?
CarMax, I believe.
CarMax. And, you know, he drove the car. He loved it. He definitely had some gremlins with that particular car. And I remember Kyle flew out to Florida one day, and he went to plug the car in, and the charge port had white paint all around it. And Kyle's like, Dad, your car's been repainted. So looking for those too, like pop the hood open, see how the bolts look underneath this area. Look at the doors underneath and see, are all the paint chipped off of there? If it's not, the car's probably not been touched. But I've seen on that Audi RS7 that I was talking about with hail damage, the paint on the underside of the hood, all the bolts completely stripped off. An absolute nightmare. And definitely for hail damage, look for inconsistencies in texture. They take these little tappy hammers to it, and you can definitely see them under lights like this. It may be hard to see, but definitely take that into consideration. So what I'm telling you guys is cosmetic stuff, although not necessarily the most important thing in buying a used vehicle, it's definitely something to consider, because it can show you kind of the roadmap of the car, the history of the car, and yeah, it can tell you a lot.
Yeah, super interesting. Well, thank you for that rundown, Colton. And I think this will hopefully give buyers for used vehicles or used EVs some peace of mind, because we're finally, like with this Polestar and Teslas and lots of cars now, starting to see decent depreciation, good prices. That's great, but you know, there's no such thing as, well, a free deal with no caveats. So just know what you're getting into.
Absolutely. Well, thank you guys so much for joining us on another Out of Spec detailing video. Thank you, Max, for being here, sharing his insight on his Polestar 2. We'll see you in the next one very, very soon. Bye-bye.